you aspire for big heights, big positions, to get into those roles of more agency, and kind of taking on the director role. So it's important to study the way that someone who's already there makes decisions. And any pitfalls that they have seen through their experience. So I was very, very pleased and very honored to interview Mr. Kenton Low. He's been a chief marketing officer, a vice president of marketing, and is now the dean of the School of Business and Media at BCIT, or British Columbia Institute of Technology. Very honored, and it was a fantastic episode. We got to talk about pitfalls. He's gave some of his advice based on his experiences, and kind of the skills that he had to build throughout his career in order to make him the man that he is, and get to the positions that he has attained. It's a fantastic episode, and of course, I hope you enjoy. A lot of people that are inside of my position, students and stuff, many people dream of like executive level C-suite and stuff, but don't really know what like goes on there, right? So like, let us know a little bit about like what goes on at that level of marketing.
Sure. So, like you, Victor, I did start in your position as a student, and ultimately got to where I am today because I dreamed big. When I was a student, I started to think about like CMO positions or CEO positions, and ever wondering, could I possibly attain that level? And I have. And so, and we can separately talk about how I got there. But at this level, at the C-suite level, you're responsible for overarching strategy for your organization as it relates to where are we steering the ship, what is the purpose of the organization, and how do we marshal the troops to get everybody on the same page to deliver on the purpose of the organization. It's exciting working with fellow C-suite executives to build a cohesive and collaborative team that can drive an organization forward. And I've been lucky to work in a number of organizations where I can truthfully say that my colleagues were collaborative and just high energy and high levels of proficiency in all of our respective areas.
Yeah.
So it's an exciting position to be in. You will get there someday, Victor.
That's the hope. That's the dream. Obviously, here at the idea industry, we want to know, we want to know about like opportunities, right? That's the biggest thing. That's what a lot of business is. It's jumping on opportunities, mitigating threats, addressing threats. But what goes into that process, right? How do we go about identifying market and product opportunities?
It's an interesting combo. Uh, like you, I learned in school about doing things like identifying market and product opportunities. So that's sort of like the theory. Then when I got into the real world, whether it was identifying a market or product opportunities for something like a food product, all the way to identifying a market or product opportunities for something as big as a theme park. There are specific steps. They're different by industry, by company, but there's some general steps that all organizations follow. And we could talk about each one of them. The first thing is to do research, market research up front. That's the foundational piece, because what you want to do is to conduct thorough market research to understand a number of things. One is understand the trends that are going on out there, the needs and gaps that exist in the marketplace. And you would do things from surveys to focus groups to reading industry reports and gathering data to build a foundation for further analysis. And then from that type of analysis, you'd also look at the competition. Who's out there in the marketplace? You could be in completely uncharted territory, but many people or many organizations are likely in a space where there are some competitors. So you want to analyze the competitors and what they're offering. You want to look at their strengths and their weaknesses and where there might be some gaps in what they're doing that presents an opportunity for your organization. Uh, so that's the competition. Then the next thing you would look at is your potential customers. So you want to talk to either, you might have some existing customers or you have potential customers. So you want to use various feedback mechanisms like interviews and surveys and social media listening to understand what are, like as I mentioned earlier, customer consumer needs, but you also want to understand like pain points. What really is bothering them that could also present an opportunity. Then a very difficult step that a lot of companies have trouble doing is a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Companies, when it comes time to like looking outward, pretty good at doing that to identify
Mhm.
opportunities and threats. But a lot of times when you look inward, companies are pretty good at identifying their strengths, but a
Yeah.
lot of them are not that great at identifying their weaknesses because what? We're weak? Well, you really have to look and say, yeah, and sometimes the weakness could be in people. And that's
Mm.
a difficult topic to deal with. But you've got to have an honest, open, transparent discussion to evaluate the potential that exists out there and whether or not your organization is ready to address that. And then just overall, keeping track of what's happening in trends out there in the industry, technology, regulatory changes. Those are important things that I think need to be taken into account. And when I look back at the various positions I've had, again, whether it's a food product opportunity or a theme park opportunity, there are these are sort of like the fundamental things. Of course, there are other things that come into play, like in evaluating whether or not Disney should build a new theme park. We're looking at multiple factors beyond just what I talked about. Like you're looking at an economy, you're looking at GDP, you're looking at population, you're looking at other factors that could come into play as it relates to regulatory factors. So lots of big things that come into play. You're looking at like in the theme park where we look at uh, uh, the tourism industry, inbound, outbound tourists. So those are all other factors that you have to take a look at as well too, and
Yeah.
something as big as that.
You mentioned that organizations often have like trouble with like the weakness part, right? And I'm sure that each organization kind of has its like strengths and weaknesses when it comes to like the research in general and stuff, right? Where have you seen inside of your career where your team or organization, without I guess naming the organization, like struggled with some like point inside of that, like searching for market opportunities or like figuring out the team's weaknesses? Like what was the time where like they really struggled with that and that affected how well you could implement like an opportunity?
Sure. Uh, One area that I've experienced that other organizations or companies experience is the skill set of the team members.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you kind of don't know what you don't know. And if you're
Yeah.
missing a particular skill set on the team, you might not even know that that skill set's missing. So you're plowing forward on evaluating the opportunity, and you may have missed a very important factor because the skill set of the team may not have had either enough experience or knowledge to be able to identify either that threat or like an internal weakness that exists. Because, as I said, you don't know what you don't know.
Do you think that there is a way to proactively like address like weaknesses? Like how can a team make sure that they are well equipped for future endeavors, you know?
So, to be well equipped for future endeavors, you, you you look at that opportunity out there, and as you're going through some of those factors that I mentioned earlier, as it relates to research, competitor analysis, analyzing your customers, looking at trends, uh, the hope is at least one person on the team, hopefully the leader, can look and say, okay, we got to dive deeper into this area, and then be able to see that, whoa, we actually don't have the skill set on our team to be able to dive into, I'll pick one, like government regulations. If you don't
Hmm.
have people that understand how the government can impact what you're trying to launch or the opportunity you're trying to evaluate, you could be missing something that could come back to bite you later on. So
Yeah.
generally, it falls upon the leader. And the reason why somebody rises to the level of being a leader is they should have enough experience and capabilities to be able to see what the team is missing.
Yeah.
But there are so many failures out there, and many times you can point to the leader and say, there was something they missed. There was something they
Yeah.
missed.
Yeah, so it's the leader's job to like obviously not just like spearhead whatever the mission is, but also like looking back and it's like, wait, are like people is my team actually prepared to take this on? And do you think that that's more of a training thing or like okay, well then let's find like people.
It just depends on how fast or slow you want to go. If
Mhm.
if if you're fine doing it internally, you've got some training that has to happen on the team so that they can get up to speed. But if you want to
Yep.
move faster and you want to increase your chances for success, you want to shore up those areas that maybe kind of weak. It's, I guess, which I would liken it to. How quickly do you want to win the Stanley Cup?
Mm.
So, are we in building mode and we're going to draft
Yep.
young, talented people and then build them up? Or do we look and say, we're pretty weak on defense. So
Yeah.
we need to go out there and trade for a defenseman or bring in defensemen that can immediately make an impact. Or,
Mhm.
like, boy, our goaltender's a sieve. we need a stronger goaltender.
I'm a bit of like a think tank, like I think about a lot of ideas. I constantly have ideas. I have things that I want to work on, I like keeping my hands busy. But sometimes, that means that like we're just like jumping on ideas, we work on it. Oh shoot, didn't think that through, whatever, pitfall. You restart, new idea, new shiny object, you know what I mean? How do we in marketing and just like business in general, like slow down and like actually verify these big ideas or aha moments that we have?
Well, it's sometimes it's hard to slow down a energetic entrepreneur.
Yeah.
They're going to go out there, they're going to get bruised, but they will learn as they go along. There are some things to sort of like keep in mind if you're trying to verify your business idea up front. And I don't know if you heard of this sort of like common approach that companies take, and it's really only three things: desirability, feasibility, and viability. So when
Mm,
you're looking at a business idea, you want to first have a discussion with your team about the desirability of that product or service. Is this really something that people need or people want? And need and wants are really important, because if you just sit there and say, yeah, people need this product, but the question is, any competition could deliver a product that people say they need.
yeah.
But really try to understand, what do people want? And then how do you deliver on the want? And that's where like marketing comes into play to some degree. So here's a great
Yeah.
example. Let's take motorcycles. So people will say, I need a high performance motorcycle. And so you can look and say, okay, well, there's Harley Davidson, there's Yamaha. There's like all these motorcycle companies that can probably deliver a high performance motorcycle.
Yeah.
So now you're kind of like in the same competitive set as everybody else. But if you
Yeah.
truly understand what prospective customers want, you then by leveraging marketing and other things, can rise above the competition because you understand what your customer or prospective customer need, but you truly understand what they want. And going back to the motorcycle example here, people say, and it depends also on the target audience you're going after. But let's take an example. I'll use Harley Davidson as an example. Harley Davidson would say, yeah, our target audience, they say they need a high performance motorcycle, but we have dissected it all the way to what do they want. And what Harley Davidson has found that their target audience wants is they need a high performance motorcycle. They want freedom.
Mm.
So that's like, so there's a functional benefit and there's an emotional benefit. So you got to really
Yep.
peel that back when you're trying to understand the desirability of what it is that you want to offer. The second piece is feasibility. You just got to look and say, okay, whether it's a product or a service, is there technology that we currently have or that we can acquire that will allow us to actually make this product or make this service? That's the
Yep.
feasibility. And the last part is like viability. And that is, will this product or service be economically viable? So what you want to do is do your financial projections to estimate what are the revenues, what are the costs, what's going to be the profitability of this. So a
Yep.
very simple tool that people can use, like energetic entrepreneurs like Victor, you think about desirability, think about feasibility, and think about viability.
I remember this quote, and I forgot who the quotation is from, but it was a Maxim Gladwell speech, and he was quoting this one marketer, and he was saying that the brain knows not what the tongue wants, right? And it's going further than just like, okay, well, people say they like really dark, rich coffee, right? But not a lot of people actually drink their coffee black. Like they put a bunch of sugar and a bunch of cream and whatever, right? So it's not just like going after like, okay, well, people say they want like a really fast car, right? But it's like, no, there's like more to it. And I guess that comes down to like research and so on, right? Of
It's
like
yeah,
actually getting to know the customer base.
and many companies will stop and say, okay, we know enough. But if you
Yeah.
gotta you gotta drill deeper.
Sometimes I actually do go in and I think about my actions before doing them, but then I have the other problem of analysis paralysis. I dig too deep and I get lost in the sauce. So what would you say is like where's the balance? Like how far should one go into research before it's like, okay, I'm doing too much and now I'm like not even acting on a timely manner?
So there's there's this balance that you have between analysis and gut. So your gut may be saying one thing and analysis may be saying something else. You got to marry those two together and say, like, do I know enough? Do I know enough to make this decision to flip the switch and go for it? One thing to think about when you're thinking analysis paralysis is when you've gone so far with your analysis and you want to do some more, ask yourself the question, if I do this additional piece of analysis, how much more will I really learn? And if you look and say, well, I'm not going to learn that much more than I already know. So let's marry that what I know now through my analysis with my gut and decide to either go for it or call it a day. You could miss an opportunity because you're in analysis paralysis mode.
Mm.
So keep that in mind too as you're thinking through the opportunity. Like, who else is thinking of this opportunity? Like, is it better just to get
Yeah.
out there and tweak it, or is it better to just continue to do a bit more analysis?
Yeah.
It's a subjective call. You're gonna have, but it's based on the insights and input that you get from evaluating and assessing the marketplace.
If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, please subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. For more insights and conversations, follow me on LinkedIn or visit my website, victoryyetti.ca. Until then, keep asking questions and dare to have dissenting ideas.